Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh, my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine. Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, joined by my fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Woolscroft. No Lane today.
No Lane today.
No Lane today.
Yeah. So what, The Shining meets Alien?
No.
Is that the pitch?
Hellraiser in space.
Sort of, yeah.
No, that literally is the movie.
I got a lot of
Hellraiser in
Shining
space.
vibes.
You got some Shining vibes?
Hellraiser vibes.
Hellraiser's in space.
Words are hard.
Words
We're
are
only on a
difficult.
podcast.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no Lane.
No Lane.
She had a prior commitment.
She had a brunch.
Yeah. Let's be honest, yeah.
She blew us off for a brunch. And she's gonna
Best friend's
blow us.
birthday, yeah.
She's gonna blow us off for the next episode for a brunch too. Because it's not like we record all of them out one day or anything like that.
Well, she'll be
Peek
missing in a
behind
few
the
weeks,
curtain,
actually.
wizard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're in episode 132, and this is another entry into the really that awful series of episodes in which this week we are
I
discussing.
love you threw that question mark in there.
Really? like someone's grabbing your balls and just squeezing right as you say really. Like, really? But anyway, we're going to be discussing the 1990, I believe, 7?
Yes.
1997 Paul W. Not W. No, this is
Paul
W. S. Not
Anderson.
Thomas.
Yeah.
Paul W. S. Anderson film Event Horizon, which is one of my absolute favorite films. So
Yeah, not the
not
good,
biased at all.
Not the good Paul Thomas Anderson, the Mortal Kombat Resident Evil
Yes.
guy.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
you're in for quality.
and I forgot that he was the Mortal Kombat guy.
Yeah.
I knew he was the Resident Evil guy, but I didn't know he was the Mortal Kombat guy.
Because it keeps his fiance employed, if he makes 20 million of those.
Well, I
movies.
don't think he's is he married still to Mila Jovovich?
I don't think they ever got married. I think they're just like
bang buddies.
Yeah, with a kid.
Yeah. Bang buddies with a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Event Horizon. How were you introduced to this movie? Did you see this? Was this the first time you saw it?
Oh, no. Yeah, I rented this, at I think either Eagle Video or Papa-Rops.
Papa Rops?
Our hometown video store, the Greg Ropp ran.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, because it was one of those, it came out on a pretty busy, weekend for movies. I missed it initially, but it looked cool and had the guy from Jurassic Park in it. So picked it up from the video store. It was kind of forgettable for me, so I had to pick it up again.
Oh, man.
And this will be interesting because there's only 2 of us this week, and I obviously rewatched this in preparation for this episode, and I think that this is actually going to be more of a debate than anything else.
Probably, because I'm assuming you hate this movie.
No, I will not. I will not say
it.
I hate this movie.
It's like it. So I want to give, and I want to try to do this for some of our episodes now. I want to give kind of like what IMDb says is the plot summary, because I think when we ever try to hash
That would
together,
be nice if anyone
when we hash together a summary, it's kind of like trying to hump a doorknob or something. Like it never works. So
It's technically possible.
yeah, technically possible.
Use lube, kids.
So here's the plot summary on IMDb. In the year 2047, a group of astronauts are sent to investigate and salvage the long-lost starship Event Horizon. The ship disappeared mysteriously 7 years before on its maiden voyage, and with its return comes even more mystery as the crew of the Lewis and Clark discover the real truth behind its disappearance and something even more terrifying. Ta-da! Yes, that is correct. I love those synopses because it doesn't tell you shit.
Yeah. Wait, is that what the Sam Neill movie was? It's chasing dinosaurs around. Did I watch the wrong movie?
Well, I was saying this before we started recording, but I have a feeling that Sam Neill in this movie is playing a descendant of Dr. Grant from Jurassic Park. Only this one has gone crazy.
Well, remember, it's not that far in the future. In fact, they say 2015, we've colonized the moon.
Well, I posted that on Instagram. Did you see that? Yeah. I posted that. I said, I think history might have gotten this wrong. Oopsie. We've colonized the moon. We are, exploring natural resources on Mars.
Well, that was the wishful thinking under Bill Jeff. Like, there's nowhere we can't go. We're going to colonize the moon, but then, no, Donald Trump's going to be president. What? That's the future. We're not going to be that stupid in the future. Yeah, no way.
Surprise! We are. This takes place in 2047. We're basically giving a little bit of a background on the Event Horizon, what it is. And basically, it's an experimental starship that is the first one to do faster than light travel. That's the whole plot of this. Is basically this ship did faster than light travel. And the person who designed it is Sam Neill's character, Dr. Weir, which that name right there is already setting up for him to be the bad guy and creepy because it's weird, like weird.
Yeah, I was going to say, he sounds like Dr. Weird. Like
Dr. Evil.
They thought about Dr. I'm a bad guy.
Dr. Bad Guy.
A little too on the nose.
Yeah. If we call him Dr. Scratchface, that's going to be too much. But anyway, so Dr. Weir has been having nightmares and visions
that don't go anywhere.
Oh, come on. Yes, they do.
What's that screaming guy at the beginning of the movie? Where does that go?
Well, that screaming guy is the ship. That's the ship reaching out to him. It's going to be a fight episode, I feel like. So anyway, he's having these nightmares about the ship, and also his wife, who we find out has died. She committed suicide, and it's implied that because of the fact that Dr. Weir was so focused on getting the Event Horizon to work, that he neglected his marriage, and she killed herself. Okay, I'll give you that. So he's haunted by that. He's also haunted professionally because obviously the ship disappeared once it tried to, engage its faster than light drive. So he professionally has been destroyed. His personal relationship has been destroyed. So he's not exactly the most stable of people.
Yeah.
To put one in space, two on a rescue mission. So,
but he did make the ship.
He did make the
ship. Send him out there. Yeah.
And that's his whole thing. He keeps saying it every fucking minute. I designed the ship.
Just me.
Me. Only you, right?
It's that Steve Jobs thing, like, I made the iPad. I'm like, yeah, it was just you, right, Steve?
Right, Steve? There was no team.
It wasn't you just sat around and said, hey, I want like a really flat, tiny computer. Go make it happen so I can go
No, I always envisioned Steve just taking a notebook and saying, yeah, I want this, but digital.
Yeah. My jeans and turtleneck.
My jeans. Everybody wears jeans and turtleneck. Yeah. Okay. But no one's turtleneck is higher than mine. So anyway, we are introduced to Dr. Weir, who ends up going on this salvage mission
with Morpheus.
Yeah. Who Lawrence Fishburne is basically playing Morpheus again.
Which isn't fair because this came out before
it did.
Matrix. So if anything, in Matrix, he's playing his character from this movie.
Well, this is funny because Lawrence Fishburne is so identified with Morpheus now. Like, anytime you see him in a movie, you're like, oh, it's Morpheus. Like, John Wick 2 came out, and Lawrence Fishburne is in that as well. And I'm just like, oh, it's Morpheus, but he's got hair and a beard now.
It's that voice, you know what I mean? Like, you automatically think, what character do you identify him most as, and that's it,
But what's funny is, like, in this, you have to go back to a time before The Matrix. And before The Matrix, like, Lawrence Fishburne was known as fucking Cowboy Curtis. Cowboy Curtis, who got into acting.
I remember as Larry Fishburne in Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yes.
Back when he was Larry.
Larry and Cowboy Curtis.
Yeah.
But... and it would have been hilarious if while he's dealing with the Event Horizon just said, woo, Pee-wee!
He's in his cowboy outfit.
Yeah. So anyway, we're introduced to the crew of the Lewis and Clark. And the Lewis and Clark is a salvage vessel that is basically working with the military and working with what I guess is NASA to basically retrieve the Event Horizon. Because the Event Horizon disappeared without a trace on its maiden voyage. I forgot to mention that.
On the maiden voyage. You did mention it, yeah.
I did mention it, didn't I? So
I immediately thought Titanic when you said it. Yeah.
so the ship had disappeared without a trace. and it reappears. So they decide they're going to go out and try to ascertain the condition of the ship and try to bring it back if possible, because of the fact that it is the only ship that can get them faster than light travel. So we're introduced to a ragtag group of characters.
Almost like space truckers, almost.
It is a little bit like space truckers.
I can't imagine where I've seen that before. Anyways.
Or maybe a certain, alien movie.
What?
Called Alien. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Female executive officer? Check.
Yeah.
Hard-nosed captain? Check.
Yeah.
Goofy British guy? Check.
Yeah.
No robots, though. There's no robots in this one, so there is that. But
well, there was Sam Neill's acting.
Sam Neill. He's not a robot, though.
Jury's out.
So yeah, I mean, we're introduced to a couple different characters here. I'm going to go down the line of who we've got. And honestly, like, you look at them now, you're just like, wow, these people have gotten bigger roles since then. So we've got Jolie Richardson as Lieutenant Stark. She's the hard-nosed executive XO.
Vanessa Redgrave's daughter.
Yes, Vanessa Redgrave's daughter. Who you can... It's really weird watching these older movies. Because, they still don't feel older, even though they clearly are. Because you look at Jolie Richardson now, you're just like, wow. You got some city miles on you. So Jolie Richardson... Because I always go back to, Nip Tuck. Because she was in that as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And she was a mom in that. So you've got Jolie Richardson as Lieutenant Stark, Jason Isaacs as DJ, who you never quite get what his backstory is. You think he's like the doctor, but he's not the doctor. So you get kind of like that maybe he was like some sort of murderer or some shit like that, or a sadist. It's never really explained.
Well, the characters are fairly interesting in this movie, but you don't get any sense of who any of them are.
No.
Well, at least they're not flat. They're not fleshed out at all.
Yes, I will say that this doesn't suffer from these characters not being, flat, but they definitely could use some more. And I think the thing is the way that this movie works is, and I'll get to this more when we get onto the ship Event Horizon, but you kind of get a little bit of what their backstory is through some of the delusions that they start to see on the ship. Yeah. So anyway,
well, and just real quick,
go ahead. Yeah.
This original cut of this movie from Mr. Mortal Kombat was 130 minutes, and the studio was like, "Yeah, no, that's not going to work," and it ended up being 93 minutes. They cut it down from 130 to 93.
Yeah.
So something got butchered in the process. I'm not saying that at 130 was going to be a masterpiece, but it's Once Upon a Time in America.
Yeah. But. So we're also introduced to Sean Pertwee, who plays Smith or Smitty. You might not know who that is, but you've probably seen him in a bunch of stuff. He plays Alfred in Gotham now, so the TV show Gotham.
Son of a bitch, yeah, he does.
Yeah, he's out, and you're just like, he's playing the same character, only he's not a smartass, And then we're also introduced to who else we got here? We've got Richard T. Jones, who plays Cooper, and I just kept thinking of the character he played in Jury Duty with Pauly Shore.
Oh, wow.
Remember that?
Jury Duty cut.
Jury Duty. That's a deep cut there. It's a really deep cut.
He sounds exactly like Denzel Washington.
He does.
It is very odd.
He does.
If you close your eyes, you think you're listening to it. If it's a Sunday afternoon, you're passing out on the couch, you think, oh, I'm watching a Denzel movie. Is this Pelican Brief? Why are people screaming about their eyes coming out?
In the 90s, yes, he was kind of like discount Denzel. I'm coming, motherfuckers! And then we've got Kathleen Quinlan, who plays Peters, and she is the quote-unquote doctor. So that's our ragtag group of characters. Oh, I didn't mention the captain. So Larry Fishburne, as you like to call him, he plays Captain Miller.
My buddy Larry. Captain Miller, who's a very by-the-book type of captain.
Yeah. He expects a lot from his crew, but you also get that he maybe has a little bit of a reason to be kind of cautious. And a lot of this is kind of explained in the movie. So
he's a tough but fair gym teacher.
He's a tough but fair gym techer. Yeah. He'll push you on the ropes.
Yeah.
But
it's funny because he wants
you to succeed. He's like, give me your hand. After I push you down.
Yeah.
But so anyway, Dr. Weird joins this ragtag group, And we get kind of a look at the future and the space technology in this. And this is very much, in my opinion, one of the best parts of the movie is the aesthetic of the film. So, like, the actual set design, the actual feeling.
Sets.
The sets are beautiful.
The special effects, not so much.
I'm getting to that. Yeah. So, the set design and what I think the cinematography of this is very beautiful. They went for more of like a Gothic cathedral look to this, and it also feels a little bit like Geiger, so you get a little bit of that Geiger feel to things. A lot of columns. It's a future that is not clean. Like, you get the feeling that there's some grit to this, and
everything's a German expressionist penis.
Yes, yes, it is. That's what I'm saying. Geiger, Geiger is very much penis.
Yeah,
So,
penis here, vagina
penis
there,
here, vagina there. It's got teeth. It's okay.
He's just a giant pervert. Ooh, boobs and wieners. But I'm very good at art.
But I'm very good at arting.
Yeah.
I art well.
I'm sure the Batman Forever Batmobile was not drawn by him, because I'm like, that is a ribbed condom dick.
That was Schumacher.
Yeah.
Schumacher was like, so we thought we would just, like, someone's told Schumacher, yeah, I thought we would just bring out the Batmobile from, like, Tim Burton, because he is kind of still the executive producer on this. You know, there's no real reason to redesign it. It works great. It's just in the parking lot right over there. I could bring it out. No.
Yeah.
I think I need a penis-shaped Batmobile.
And I'm sure the original
A lot of veins.
was the ambiguously gay duo one that had the penis head on the end. No, Joel, you can't do that.
No, Joel, we can't do that. That's copyright. Okay, fine. Design my own penis Batmobile.
You already put a cod piece and a nipple on the outfit. You can't give him a dickhead car.
No. Yeah. Yeah. That's one we haven't done yet, by the way, is Batman Forever.
You know, as much as
Or
it would
Robin.
drive you nuts, I think we should do a Really That Awful on Batman Forever.
There is... Those are fighting words, but yes. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So getting back to Event Horizon. So we're introduced to this future that is very, as I said, the set design in this is very beautiful. They actually use Pinewood Studios. They had the full lot for Pinewood to be able to design this. And
Pinewood Studios where they did Batman.
that's where they did
Batman.
The original. It's one of the largest sound stages in the world, I believe.
Well, in a lot of films, I should say, but I just know that one in particular.
So anyway, we're introduced to this concept of, to travel to anywhere in space. I guess they've invented this thing called gravity couches, which are basically like tubes. Again, kind of
very comfortable.
They look really uncomfortable. Like, I never understood that. I'm like, okay, so we're in the future, okay? At least future for this movie. So not really that much far in the future for us. 2047, that seems far away, but it isn't.
Yeah.
Really isn't.
28 years from now.
28 years from now. And, they say that, hey, you kind of have to go in these gravity couches because going, I guess the distance they're going, like the speed would liquefy their bodies, so like to do that, it kind of keeps their equilibrium. I mean, that's kind of what I got, and mostly bullshit science. So, they go into these tubes and immediately you're thinking like, this is Alien. This is a ripoff of Alien at this point. And the first thing that happens is Weir has a nightmare again about the Event Horizon. And it turns out the Event Horizon is actually parked in, was it Neptune? I think
right
it was
outside Neptune.
Right outside Neptune. Of all the planets you can think of, why Neptune?
Well, you can't do Uranus, right? Too many jokes.
Too many jokes. Especially once you get to like, a black hole on Uranus?
There's a black hole on Uranus.
Yeah.
And you got to be out farther than Jupiter.
Yes.
Pluto's not a planet anymore.
Pluto's not a planet. And at this time, Pluto was a planet.
Yeah.
Okay?
Back then. Yeah.
We were apparently much smarter back then that we called Pluto a planet. That's how you know we're getting stupid when we start saying, the place isn't a planet anymore. So anyway, they get out of the grav couches, they discover the Event Horizon, and the first thing they notice is that they do a scanning for life forms, and they find the whole ship lit up. But it's like weird. And the first time I watched this, I didn't really get it, but as I've seen it multiple times, and I kind of know the mythology of the Event Horizon, you start to see that particular point kind of just set up for later in the movie when you find out the ship is actually alive.
What a twist!
So they scan for life forms and they end up going on to the ship. The one person I didn't mention was Jack Noseworthy, who plays Justin. That's actually his
fucking
name. That's actually his name. He's kind of like the Mouse character in The Matrix. Remember Mouse? He's the guy who got like lit up. He was the first one to die. Yeah. No one really cared about him.
He's basically that.
He's basically that in this. So
that's when a man takes his wife's name. Like, hi, I'm Jessica Felchbottom. Good enough.
Yeah. So the boarding party goes in the event horizon, and they find that the place is a mess. And also they find that everyone has been murdered, like gruesomely murdered. And they also discover that there was a recording of the ship coming out of Lightspeed,
which was like a Trent Reznor early cut, you know?
Yes. Yes, it's a lot of screaming.
Before he's done any editing.
A lot of screaming
and
all that stuff. And the big thing I got from this was like, oh, this is why I should know Latin. Because the people on the event horizon who were screaming, and, you know, it sounds like all sorts of horribleness is happening. And the one person saying, Liberate me. And DJ says, oh, yes, that is, you know, save us. So it's like trying to get them to go onto the ship. They go on the ship, discover everyone's dead. And then things start to happen. Do you want to talk about the things that start to happen?
Well, at that point, why don't they just say to themselves, you know what? Well, everyone's dead. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Gruesomely dead. They were tortured.
Like eyes ripped out.
They were the only ones on the ship, but yet they were brutally tortured. Well, let's just go file a report and get on out of here.
You would think that would be it, right? Right?
Well, they start to realize that the ship, like you said, is alive. It doesn't want anybody to leave. Because they put a rip in the space-time continuum where they're in like another dimension exists in this ship.
Well, what Weir says is that to accomplish the light speed that they needed to do, they needed to basically rip a hole inside of the fabric of space and time. So he does what is typically in every science fiction movie that does this.
What Han Solo's been doing for years.
Yes, what Han Solo's been doing for years. He takes a piece of paper and he punches a pen through it.
Yeah, as you said.
So it's like
every movie,
every fucking movie,
so they can explain your wormholes and shit like that to the audience.
And I mentioned this before we started recording. I was like, why did no one say maybe you shouldn't rip holes in space and time? Like, do you think
Mr. Scientist?
Mr. Scientist? What? Do you think that's a good idea? like really? And it turns out it wasn't.
Point A to point B. What's the fastest way there? A straight line.
A straight line. Wrong.
We can bend time where A and B meet together.
Yeah. So the first victim of the ship is Mouse, also known as Justin, baby boy. That's his name. You know,
he looked like the first victim. You know,
he's the weakest link.
I'm gonna die first.
He's the absolute weakest link, and you're just like, oh, that's a little kid. He's gonna die first.
Yeah.
So he ends up going to the ship's engine, which, in my opinion, the ship's engine is honestly the best design set in the entire movie. Like you've got these spears that are all over the place. I don't know what the hell any of it does. Like, there's no reason for it.
It was very Burton-esque in one sense, is that it was pretty, but it made no sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it made absolutely no sense why there are these jagged things all over the place.
Jagged circles and circles.
Pointy objects.
This is the engine.
Like, I'm pretty sure you never want any pointy objects in an engine at all.
Where do you put the gas into this thing?
Right. So the engine is this spinning orb thing that has all these pointy things around it, okay? And I mention a lot that this is basically Hellraiser in space, and honestly, the design of the entranceways are pulled directly from Hellraiser. Like, literally, I could pull out the puzzle box from the Hellraiser movies and show it to you and say, yeah, see those designs there? It's all here. And it is. It honestly is.
Are you trying to say Mr. Resident Evil isn't very original?
I'm saying, well, here's the thing. I'm saying that he took concepts from Clive Barker and from the Hellraiser series, the aesthetic of it, and he put it in space. And I will say he did I don't begrudge him for this movie. As I said, I love this movie. But this is what Hellraiser in space should have been. So Hellraiser Bloodlines, I mentioned this before, like that's the Hellraiser in space movie that came out in 96.
Yeah.
And it's terrible.
Well, a different production company, $3 and not Pinhead.
That's an Alan Smithy movie, okay?
Yeah.
Like that movie is an Alan Smithy film, which if you're not familiar, Alan Smithy is basically the fake pseudonym given to any movie where the director doesn't want to be known by it.
Yeah.
Like they write off.
He was
the movie
contractually
themselves.
obligated to make it, but it was an utter disaster,
Yes.
and he doesn't want his name
Exactly.
attached to it.
So Bloodline, Hellraiser Bloodline, the first half of it I think is interesting, which is all about how the puzzle box was made. But then we get into like the latter half.
Oh, so basically you mean this movie, how the first half was kind of interesting, and then it just turns into a convoluted mess.
Hey now. Hey now. Those are fighting words.
We'll get there.
But what I'm saying is like, whereas the last half of Bloodline was a tacked on space plot that made no fucking sense whatsoever, this is more or less what we should have gotten with that concept. Take the Hellraiser universe, puzzle box, all that stuff, and put those concepts inside of a futuristic space world. So that's what I say about Event Horizon, is that for better or worse, it is what we would want to get if we were going to take the concepts from Hellraiser and put them in the future and put them in space. So anyway, Justin goes to the engine room like an idiot, and I never understood this concept in science fiction movies. You see something weird, like a ball that's spinning around with rings that has pointy things all over it, and it opens up to a liquid blackness, and your first thought is not, I should run away because that looks scary. Instead, it's, let me put my hand in it. Like, I never understood that concept, and this happens all the time in science fiction movies.
I don't know if he was supposed to be mesmerized by it or something, or what.
No, he put his fucking hand in it. And he knew what he was doing.
It's like that character in a movie that like sees something on the floor and then puts it on his tongue. It's blood. It's like, you just ate it. Ew. What are you doing?
What if he had AIDS?
Yeah.
What if he had cancer AIDS?
Cades.
Cades. Oh, you got the Cades now. So anyway, he puts his hand in and he gets pulled into the black, goo.
I'm sure nothing bad can come from that.
No, nothing bad can come from that. And that basically causes a giant electronic disruption, which basically disables the Lewis and Clark and forces everyone to have to abandon ship and go on to the Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Okay? Which is what the ship wanted.
Dun, dun,
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. And they, eventually they pull Justin out and he's catatonic.
I think the ship's just lonely.
The ship's lonely. It's been sitting out by Neptune.
Me, man. Yeah.
It can't hang out by Uranus.
Want to get some wings? Watch the game?
Watch the game. Watch the game. We can go to hell. I mean, I've been to hell multiple times, So, anyway, at this point, they're trying to prep the ship so that they can kind of survive on it a little bit. And this is where we start to get kind of the individual delusions that the ship is causing. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Well, Cowboy Curtis sees Pee-wee on fire. No.
He sees a former shipmate of his that died on fire.
He had no choice but to leave behind, and the guy got extra toasty. So it's a big thing of his to not leave people behind.
Milla, you left me behind.
And it was Vanessa Redgrave's daughter had the little boy at home.
No, that was
shit.
that was the other
the other woman.
Peters.
Yeah.
The other woman. Female number 2.
Yeah, she can't be at home for Christmas. She will not be home for Christmas.
Yes.
So she sees her son running around, which to me was very Shining-esque. That's why I thought it was had that Shining feel.
Yeah.
That and the scene where Dr. Grant watches his wife cut her wrist in the bathtub.
Yeah.
We finally get that explained to us that she offed herself.
And I get that those what did you say? The runtime original was 130 minutes.
Yeah.
So I get that probably the delusions that DJ and Smitty and even Cooper had, and also Stark, were probably in that, because we never saw their delusions. They never once had any sort of things where the ship was fucking with them.
Which probably, if this movie was a little longer, we would have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm all for a very svelte runtime. I think every other episode we talk about, you could have cut 10 minutes out. I think your movie should be as short as it can be, but not any shorter than it should be. And this movie clearly is missing a bunch.
Exactly. I think that, again, either they could have put that in there, put those things in there somehow, like to give us some sort of explanation and some sort of depth of the characters, more so than we're getting, because we only seem to get it with, like, as you said, Millers, Peters, and honestly, Dr. Weir. Like, those are the three people that we see.
Well, there's three main characters, and then there's the comic relief in Richard T. What's his face? Denzel.
Richard T. Jones.
Richard T. Jones.
Yeah. But anyway, so what ends up happening is Peters falls to her death because she sees her son, who's got these weird like lesions and stuff because I guess he's got a terminal illness. And slowly the crew,
because the guy who made Mortal Kombat directed this.
Yes, exactly. And basically DJ gets. Well, I didn't even get to this part. So it's mentioned. You mentioned Dr. Weir's wife, which is a big deal, because he ends up cutting out his own eyes and sewing his eyes shut, and he slowly becomes like the big bad villain.
Which his wife was also missing her eyes, and
yes,
and the movie kind of hints on that. Like
that's a Hellraiser thing pulled right from it.
You don't need to use your eyes to see, hear, or something.
Well,
I don't know.
Okay, so here, as I said, I've seen Hellraiser, and this is pulled directly from it. So there is a line in the first Hellraiser movie that Pinhead says to Kirsten. And he says, "We have such sights to show you." And that line is said again in this movie. Only the idea is that, well, if you don't have eyes, how are you seeing it? So it's more or less that the world that they are that they're from, the hell that they're from, is transcended beyond mortal sight. Like, that's the reason why the eyes are cut out. Also, I guarantee you, the director thought it would be cool if I could show eyeballs cut out.
It's, that like DJ like Dead Mouse or something like that.
Yeah,
it seems like Dead Mouse was given Alien, The Shining, and Hellraiser, and just had to do a mashup, like and just mix all three together in a blender. Yeah, and that's kind of what we got with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I see faults in it, but I also, as I said, this is one of my favorites. So, just to fast track a little bit here, Weir cuts out his eyes. And he is convinced that they need to go back to hell, because it's revealed that when this ship had basically cut a hole through space and traveled, they crossed into a dimension that was basically hell. And it killed the whole crew. Like, the whole crew basically fucked themselves and cut themselves to death. Yeah. Like, and the video footage of it. Now, did you ever actually stop and what, like on YouTube, they took the video footage of them, the crew fucking themselves to death, and they slowed it all down, so you actually can see. It's really disturbing. Like, I watched it and I was just like,
because they only show it like if you're,
it's like really short.
If you're unable to pause it, you only see it for like 3 seconds.
Yes. So I was watching on YouTube and it's like, wow. They got away with a lot. Cause like, really, I'm surprised no one picked up. There's one guy who's getting fucked in the ass by a woman.
Blood orgy!
Yeah, but it is a blood orgy. That's exactly, that is what it is. Yeah. Some guy's mouth is being put in his hand, some guy's fist is being put in someone's mouth and pulled out, so you're seeing like all the blood and shit. Like, it's really
in the foreground,
disturbing.
There's the monster from All Real Monsters with his eyeballs in his hand.
Yes. This was the 90s after all. Yeah. So it's really disturbing, and basically, like, that's what Weir wants to do, is give the ship another crew to kill, so he activates the gravity drive, and Miller stops him, and so does Stark, and he gets flung out of the ship. And ultimately, they decide that, and I'm going through a lot of stuff because I really want to get to like discussing the merits of the movie. But they ultimately blow up the ship to use part of it as a life raft. Miller sacrifices himself because he has to face a now reborn Dr. Weir, who basically is a Pinhead ripoff at this point.
Who now has super strength.
He now has super strength, and he's bald and has glyphs carved all over his body that look just like the glyphs on the puzzle box inside of Hellraiser. I'm not even kidding. Not even kidding. So
Wait, are you trying to say this movie is similar to Hellraiser?
I'm trying to say that
Because
either
you haven't said that yet.
I'm trying to say that either this movie is in the same fucking universe as Hellraiser, or
That would be interesting.
It ripped off. I honestly, I think that would be really cool. And some people, I'm not the first person to bring that up.
Yeah.
Like there's a theory that this is in the same universe.
Maybe Dr. Weir is Pinhead.
He is. I could talk to my friend Doug Bradley and ask him that. So anyway, Miller sacrificed himself. Stark and Cooper and Justin, who's still catatonic at this point, they survive, and Stark ultimately has a nightmare in the gravity couches that Weir's still alive, and it's kind of alluded to at the end of the ship, because they're still in the ship. They're just in the part that isn't the gravity drive part.
Yeah.
It's still going to get them. And that's Event Horizon. So, thank you. As I said, I skipped over a lot of parts because I really just want to get to like the nuts and bolts of this movie.
Right.
So what do you think, John, works? What do you think works in this film?
Before that, I thought I would mention your favorite, Roger Ebert.
Oh, that fucker.
Okay, this film, 2 out of 4 stars.
Of course he did. Because he doesn't like nice things.
He said, it creates a sense of foreboding and after boating, but no actual boating. Stephen Hunter of the Washington Post wrote, if you have to watch Event Horizon and want the same experience without spending $7, try this instead. Put a bucket on your head, have a loved one beat on it vigorously with a wrench for 100 minutes. Same difference, and I think of the gas you'll save.
Okay.
Empire Magazine gave it 3 out of 5 stars, which is a little better. That the film never fulfills its promise, is down to its over-reliance on horror.
That right there makes no sense to me.
And a precision-built... What?
Why are you... What's wrong with over-reliance on horror? Why is that a problem?
Well, there's a lot of snobbishness that comes...
And I get that. This was the 90s, so they kind of... At this point, horror had been turned into a joke because of Scream.
Yeah.
I can say that because Lane's not here.
Well, before we talk about what works, I think we should do our Really That Awful segment of We Get It.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll be interested to get some of your takes on these. I think it's very difficult. I mean, you can piece it together by the end, but it's very difficult to follow what's really actually going on in this movie.
I disagree.
With all the dream sequence and all the confusingness with the life forms and this and that.
I disagree with it. And maybe it's because and honestly, like, I'm surprised you don't get it, because you're also a fan of the horror genre. So I got it because
I'm trying to look at it from,
the layman.
The layman, yes.
The layman.
Because we are film experts.
Film twats.
Yes.
Film
We
twats.
have multiple degrees.
And yes.
We have been published in the film journals.
So here's my contention with that. I think with any movie like this, you have to suspend disbelief more so than with other types of movies. Every movie you watch, there's a suspension of disbelief, because ultimately you are watching a fictional world. Okay, that's ultimately it. So you have to kind of think of what the rules of that world are. So for me, I saw that there were setups, and I saw that there were payoffs. Okay, I mentioned when I was talking about the movie, there is a point where they're scanning the ship and they see, oh, the whole ship is alive, and they say, and they're thinking at the time, oh, well, these are bizarre readings. We have to go deck by deck. And even Stark, who kind of serves as our, exposition for the ship, says the ship is alive, and we're, basically is treating us like a foreign body, and I think when they get to some of like the hell stuff, that stuff can get a little muddied. But I don't think it's any more muddied than any other type of movie. You watch the first Hellraiser movie, and I bring it up because that's the closest paradigm I can think of.
Hopefully somebody's playing the Hellraiser drinking game.
If you are, you shouldn't be hearing this because you're probably fucking drunk.
I hope
at
you're
this
just
point.
sipping beer. Yeah, don't do shots.
Don't be doing shots of this. But I bring that up because Hellraiser also operates in very much the same sort of way. You have to believe the rules of that world. The rules being, if you open the puzzle box, Pinhead and his gang of merry men and women will come and rip you apart. And there's rules to that. So I think it's just a matter of taking a step back and saying, okay, I'm going to let the movie tell me what to do and try to follow as best you can. But I do think when you get towards the end of the latter half of the movie, that stuff gets a little weird. And that is where I can see where it might be hard to follow. But I don't think that's consistent throughout.
Okay. The movie is, and this is nitpicky, but the movie's riddled with horrible CGI.
Yeah.
And it's so tricky because
it's 97.
It's one of those things where you say should look at the bigger picture, but something like bad audio or bad CGI or bad acting could pull you completely, or miscasting could pull you completely out of a movie. And I mean, maybe it worked great for 97. Maybe we were easily entertained.
Yeah, we were.
But
I mean, I don't begrudge it that much because it's 97. There has to be a point where you take a step back and you say, for the time, this was fine. I remember watching another bad movie, but The Phantom. Remember The Phantom?
With Billy Zane.
With Billy Zane.
Yeah.
And conservative Christy Swanson. And the CGI.
She's conservative.
She is.
Oh.
She's real bad, too.
Yeah. She's Buffy, right?
The original Buffy. So there's terrible CGI in that, too. And that movie came out a year before this movie. So I think 97, 98, and basically anything that was after Jurassic Park, and this is a period of time, after Jurassic Park, but before The Matrix, that period of time, the CGI was still in its infancy. Yeah. Because the cost of trying to do CGI still was really expensive. And to do it well, that's what it comes down to. To do CGI really, really well was expensive.
And the thing is, it was inexpensive to do bad CGI.
Exactly. To do either bad CGI or to do kind of a combination of practical effects that worked and didn't work at the same time. Like, there was a sequence in this movie when Miller is running down the meat grinder hallway, and he's being chased by fire, and he jumps through the closing doors. And this is more or less I know why they did it this way, but I think if it could have been saved in the edit. But he jumps through the closing doors, and the closing doors have like these spikes on them, and he jumps through it.
And the doors have spikes on them.
No, but that's not it. The doors are closing. Like, you get a shot that's point of view of the doors closing. He jumps, and the jump shot is clearly the doors not closing, like, still, while he's jumping.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to the doors closing. So, like, it's a really, like, why did you do that? Moment. And I'm just thinking, like, nowadays they probably would have replaced that with CGI.
Yeah.
They would have made it to make it work. And that's kind of what I would say is, like, there's ways in editing you could fix that. Maybe you make that shot really short so it doesn't quite seem like it's that obvious. Or, maybe you put foam, points, because this thing had sharp pointy things on the side. Maybe you have that on the end so that you get somewhat of a realistic movement, or you slow it down, that important thing. But my point is, like, nowadays we can say, oh, we'll just replace the doors with CGI doors, and that way you can make it work. But back then they didn't have that, so that's why we have those sorts of issues. But that's just one example.
I would say this movie is almost all style and no substance.
Wow, you really went after it there. I can see that point, but I also see it as, look at the landscape of horror at this time. At this time, you did have a lot of movies that were style and very little substance. I'm sorry, But Scream is a very stylistic movie.
Oh yeah, I don't.
So
think...
is I Know What You Did Last Summer, and so are a lot of these types of horror movies.
Well, that movie doesn't even have style or substance.
Yeah, but my point is that I'm looking at this and saying, how much substance do you really have to have? Are we looking for the next Shining? I don't think that's here. I think though that in a landscape where there really wasn't a whole lot of really good to decent horror, or the horror was simply just meta shit, as I say with Scream, that this was kind of a return to a gothic type of horror, almost kind of akin to a ghost story. And that's kind of where I look at it. It's more like a ghost story. And honestly, with a ghost story, you really can't get a whole lot of substance with it, other than, as I said, like with The Shining. But that's Kubrick. So
yeah. And the thing is, I put as much of this movie being a science fiction movie as I do a horror movie. Yeah. So maybe I'm thinking that that's going to push it to have like more.
I view it as more of a horror movie than a science fiction movie.
Right. Now, would you say Alien is more of a horror movie than a science fiction movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Alien and Event Horizon are in the same vein, as they push more of the horror tropes than they do the science fiction tropes. Those science fiction elements are there. We're dealing with the future, spacecraft, alien worlds, things like that. But it's what do you do with that, and that it weaves in a lot of those primordial horrors that, we have as human beings. In this case with Event Horizon, it is hell. That's really it. It's a concept of hell. And how does that play outside of Earth?
Something else with this film is there's no truly likable main character. That kind of bothered me about it, unless you consider Dr. Grant.
He's not likable at all. Yeah. He's the villain.
And the thing is, every character
he's Mr. Crazy Pants.
It's fairly forgettable. Like there's the main lady who's, remember her because she's pretty, I guess. And then there's Dr. Grant.
You mean Stark?
Yeah, sure.
Pretty lady?
Yeah, pretty lady.
I remember Pretty Lady and Kind of Pretty Lady.
Yeah. And Dr. Grant.
Dr. Grant and Morpheus.
I only remember Lawrence Fishburne because it's Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
If it was an unknown actor, I would have forgotten his character completely.
I mean, I guess, Lawrence Fishburne is supposed to kind of be the one likable character. Because you are kind of supposed to he's, again, as we said, he's kind of like the gym teacher who pushes you off the ropes and then picks you up and says, I'm trying to teach you a lesson. Like, he's supposed to be that one character that is somewhat likable, but you don't really get any sort of personality out of him other than just he's stern but fair,
Yeah. Do you really remember any of these characters' names?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember the other characters aside from Dr. Scratchface and Captain Awesome.
It's like, and I know that much to your shock, I said that not one of my favorite films, but Aliens. I remember, Newt and Ripley and all these characters. They're all memorable, and I don't.
Well, they also have very memorable lines. Like Newt has, they sometimes come out at night. They mostly come out at night. Mostly. Yeah. So Newt, they all have memorable lines, but I think that is one thing that's missing from this movie is any sort of, dialogue that is memorable. Aside from, Cooper saying, I'm coming, motherfuckers! Because he has to blow his air tank to get back to the Event Horizon. So, but I think that's the one thing. I mean, I think Cooper is supposed to also kind of be the comic relief of the movie to kind of break up some of the heady moments.
Yeah.
Whether that's successful or not, I don't know. I think it has varying levels of success other than just he kind of comes off as a little chauvinist because he wants to get up in Stark's vagina all the time.
Do you want something hot and black inside you?
It's like, I don't think you can say that nowadays.
Or 30 years in the future.
Yeah. So,
oh God, even 20 years.
Yeah. Seriously.
But, and then lastly, this is just an Alien ripoff. Every set looks like Alien. They're truckers in space. This is Alien.
Keep going back to fucking space truckers.
The only thing that's missing is an alien.
No, they are in hell. This is Hellraiser in space. But
Hellraiser.
Here's the thing. I can see that point.
Yeah.
I absolutely can see that point. And I think the thing too is it's very difficult to do horror in space and not come off like Alien. To be fair, like Alien pretty much set the bar for combined horror in space, because I really can't think of another movie prior to Alien that did that. You know, I mean, can you think of another movie that prior to Alien combined horror and space together?
No, not really.
Not really. No, because I mean, you know, the idea of we're going to put a monster, and we're going to put a monster that's so terrifying in a space environment that it's a slasher to be most part. You know, we're going to put that in space. None of that had been done before. So I think anytime you try to go into that horror space vein, you kind of run the risk of being very similar to Alien.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Geiger penises everywhere.
Geiger penises everywhere. Now, some of the things that I point out to as positives.
Yes.
Okay, some of the things I point out to as positives. I've already mentioned set design, so that's one thing. I think the mythology that this movie tries to weave is well thought out. Okay, so the idea of, you know, going into a hell escape and what comes back from that sort of journey is well thought out. And I think that's why a lot of people say that out of Paul W.S. Anderson's movies, this one is kind of at the top. Because I think it's the most thought out, it's the most designed.
I don't know, Resident Evil 4.
No. I'm being honest here. A lot of people consider this one like his best work.
Yeah, and it easily is.
Absolutely.
But if you look at his IMDb page, you're grading on a curve.
Yes, you are. But even on a curve, you could say this guy's A is another man's B.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I would say is this isn't the worst film you're ever going to see. I think a lot of things have to be taken into context. I think you have to take into context the time period. As I said, this is 97. This is well before The Matrix basically blew the door open on how to incorporate CGI realistically and skillfully. So if you go into it knowing that, then it kind of makes some of the flaws go away. That isn't to say that this movie is blameless. There clearly are. But I think that using the actors that they have, like Sam Neill is a fantastic actor. And, you know, he's coming off of, at this time, he was coming off of like, you know, In the Mind of Madness, which great movie, you know, and truly terrifying movie. You know, and he's
nice
kind
deep
of,
cut there.
it is a deep cut. But so he's used to playing these kinds of characters that are villainous. And, you know, you get an actor like that to play Weir, who clearly is a man who has issues. And clearly is someone who, you know, the prospect of the ship that basically led to all these issues coming back and him becoming part of it, like, that's a really terrifying concept. And I do like that they spent a lot of time, in my opinion, of fleshing him out the most. Like, Weir was probably the most fleshed out character in this film.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
It's weird that he becomes the villain because he is arguably the lead character. If you want to say this film has a lead character, which I'm not sure if it does. There's no Ripley here. No, I would say that Miller and Weir are your lead characters. Yeah.
So, but if we're trying to put this in the Alien paradigm, then obviously Stark would become the Ripley character. But I think that with Miller, they kind of took elements from Ripley and they took elements from what's his face, that you know, the captain in Alien. Skeet Ulrich, or no, not Skeet Ulrich. Tom Skerritt.
That would be amazing.
Tom Skerritt in Alien. Yeah. So they took like Tom Skerritt's, you know, kind of hard nosed, I'm the captain type stuff, and they combined it with the survivalist aspects of Ripley, and that's who you get as Miller. You know, like that's pretty much it. But I view that, but at the same time, you know, I could say Miller's character really isn't fleshed out a whole lot. Aside from just knowing that, hey, he let a person die long time ago. but there isn't much to it than that. But I think Weir is the most fleshed out character.
But it did seem like near the third act where he was like, I am home, where he's like, and it's like, and he sneaks into the shadows where it's like, hey, wait a minute.
That part is kind of weird.
He's evil?
It's like, wait a minute. When did he make that turn?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there are some really cheesy moments in this like that. I will also say, and one thing you didn't bring up was some of the sound design towards the end got real lazy real fast. Like the fight between Miller and Weir, when Weir is
the punches and kicks.
Yes.
Yeah.
That clearly was the stock punch kick.
And not even the good file.
No, not the good file. This is like the B or C file. It was like, hey, we ran out of money, so all I could afford was the cartoon kicks.
Yeah.
Bonk. Yeah. I was waiting for a waka waka to happen.
A pow to come up with the old Batman show.
Yeah. So like the sound design toward the end got really shitty. And they also recycled screams.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Like when Lawrence Fishburne's getting the crap kicked out of him, he screams once and then it comes back again, and I'm just like, oh, come on, man! Like I
kind of like the kick crapped out of him. Let's go with that.
Kick crapped out of him. Yeah. So like there is some laziness in that regard, and I just attribute that to just he might have had all the editing done, and they just said, hey, yeah, cut it down, and release schedule got really up on him, and he had to put it out. So I get that. There's still make sure the sound design's solid. It doesn't take much to take some celery and start beating the shit out of it, to get the sounds that you want, So that part was disappointing.
Well, especially too since he was given a shit ton of money because
they gave him a lot of money
because Mortal Kombat, made like $1 quadrillion off of like $20 and a cup of coffee.
Yes.
So they're like, well, he can
obviously make it, and you're absolutely right.
Chicken salad out of chicken shit. Yeah.
He very much did. Yeah. We're not going to talk about Mortal Kombat Annihilation because that is just chicken shit into chicken shit.
No, you will die.
Yeah. So, obviously he has, I think we mentioned this with M. Night, he's got moments of brilliance. And I think some of that's in Event Horizon. I think there's just more moments of brilliance in Event Horizon than any of the other films. But as I said, I wish they would have fleshed out more of the characters other than just Weir. At least to give a kind of a competent back and forth, hero villain type of paradigm. But that really isn't here, other than just Weir.
Well, because I felt like any substance we got to these characters was just there for future jump scares.
It was.
Like, oh no, I don't get to see my kid, and then oh no, there's a creepy kid running around the ship.
But to be fair, they are playing to the genre tropes. Yeah. How many scary movies have you seen where we really don't get a whole lot of backstory on the victims? Like how many times have you seen Nightmare on Elm Street and like Dream Warriors especially? Oh, this guy here likes to play with puppets, so he's going to get killed by a puppet.
Yeah,
we don't know anything else about him.
I used to do drugs, and now Freddy's going to kill you with drugs.
And now Freddy's going to kill you with fucking drugs.
Yeah.
So like we don't know too much about these characters. We know enough so that their deaths become a little bit more creative, a little bit more relevant.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what, Anderson did with this movie. He wanted to make a slasher film in space. Like, I think that's what it is. But he added elements that I think made it a little bit better than a traditional slasher. It's not just you have jump scares in it.
Would it be a slasher more of like a psychological horror film? Or somewhere in between?
I view it as I think one of the reasons why Event Horizon is still such a cult classic is because it's hard to nail down what type of subgenre it is. Is it a space movie? Is it a slasher film? Is it a demon, hell type of movie? Is it a thriller? Like it's kind of got aspects of all. Is it gothic horror? And the answer to that is it's all of them. It's got aspects of all of those different types of subgenres of horror mixed into it. Is it done, on a master level? No. And I would say that it is not. But is it done better than most people who have tried? Yes. I do think it is done well. If you look at the set design, if you look at the caliber of the actors, at least that are in these parts, these are good actors. They're not shit actors.
Right.
They may have just been given bad direction at times, and maybe some lines that didn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I would say the acting isn't bad. I would just say there isn't much character there.
Right.
And that's their performances are fine.
And that's what I'm saying.
There's no point where I was like, at any of
Yeah. I mean, even with, Cooper doing his one-liners, I found it entertaining. I didn't sit there going like, oh, this guy's fucking cheesy as all hell. I'm like, okay, yeah, he is entertaining. He is doing what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to be the comic relief. So
it reminds me of that sacrilegious Dawn of the Dead remake garbage that
that is sacrilegious.
Our brother, our best friend, what's his face, did the DCEU guy, Zack Snyder.
Oh, Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder, your best friend and mine.
I don't mind that Dawn of the Dead remake nearly as much as some of the other remakes that have come after it. But yes.
'cause you said he was the comic relief. It reminds me of the guy from Modern Family.
Yes.
How fucking annoying and clearly a scripted character he was.
He was a scripted character.
Get down this. But,
yeah. So, to close out Event Horizon, do you think this movie is really that awful?
Well, yeah, so let's
or do you got more to it? You're not done.
Let's discuss, because, we talk about really that awful, why this film, didn't hit. Because we can talk about critics all day.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
We are critics in and of ourselves.
Oh, man, we have become.
But, but with an audience, because this film came and it went. It bombed at the box office. It was forgotten by many people, and that's when it fell into the cult classic sense.
I don't think it was forgotten. I think that it's like most cult classics, its initial run was not successful.
Yeah.
Where I think it definitely did succeed in was home media.
Right, but I mean that makes it a cult classic. It's like, you ask anybody, "Hey, have you heard of Star Wars?" Yeah. If you ask Joe Schmo, "Have you heard of Event Horizon?" Oh, yeah.
It depends.
But yeah, it has its cult audience.
Yeah,
sure.
And I think it has more of a reach than other cult films, because its success was not just on VHS and DVD at the time. Its success came on HBO, because that's where I found it.
Yeah,
I found this movie on HBO, and that's where I watched it a lot of times, was through HBO. So, I honestly, it became kind of like that movie, like, holy shit, did you see this movie? There's lots of gore and shit in there. And that was, again, at the time, 97, horror movies kind of had gone into a slump of the resurgence of the meta teenage slasher movie. Yeah. And it was kind of a breath of fresh air to get a movie that was more akin to the ghost story, gothic horror in space type of movie. And we really didn't have that at the time. So it was kind of unique in that regard. But it didn't fit with everything else that was coming out at the time. And I think that's part of why it didn't succeed, because people were wanting to get a horror movie like Scream. And I think another movie that came out that you can kind of compare this to, that I feel is more in the sci-fi realm rather than horror, is, you remember the movie Sphere?
Yeah.
With Dustin Hoffman and Sharon Stone and Samuel L. Jackson. So that movie, it fit, and it came out, I think, in 98. I think it was 98 or 99. So it's in that same realm of sci-fi with horror elements to it. And I don't think that movie was very, successful either, and in terms of popularity and that sort of thing.
Right.
So
a little bit more than Event Horizon, but still, not like what the studio probably hoped.
Exactly. What do you think kind of affected this movie in terms of popularity and success?
I think that, because we had mentioned, other than Alien, how many horror movies take place in space, I think people expected to see a science fiction movie. And I mean, they did get that, but considering there's so few space horror movies, that I think people were like, wait, what the hell did I get into
Why,
here.
why am I seeing blood orgy?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I thought I was going to see like a science fiction movie with the Velociraptor guy, and
Velociraptor.
people are ripping their eyeballs out, and there are like weird dream sequences, ladies cutting their wrists, and like, you know, and they didn't get what they thought they were going to get. And that's, you know, you should do your research, but like, so it's not really the film's fault, but I think that's part of the reason.
I think that also is, I think that's part of the reason why, you know, we get trailers nowadays that give away everything.
Yeah.
Because studios are so afraid of that issue of, we're going to give you a trailer that's a legit trailer and doesn't give away every little bit of the movie. And, you know, you go into it thinking, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
So like I was looking at the trailer for Dark Phoenix. That new X-Men movie.
You mean The Last Stand with more money?
Yes. Yes, The Last Stand with more money and no Bryan Singer. Yes.
Yeah.
But I was looking at that and I'm like, you literally gave away the entire fucking plot of the whole movie. Like all the twists and turns, they're right there.
Yeah.
You know, so and I think that studios do that.
Well,
because they're afraid.
They put the script out there already. It's called comic book. You know, it's
Comic
not being
book.
fairness. You know, it's kind of out there.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. But I think you're right. I think that people thought they were going in for a science fiction film, and they ended up getting a honestly more horror film than science fiction.
No.
And that does turn people off, I think.
And you know, as great as Sam Neill is, like, you know, I'm trying to think of like from a Hollywood executive standpoint, like we need to get a big star in this movie. Mm-hmm. Sam Neill wasn't that big star, and it's actually, I think Jurassic Park was so successful because you saw the trailer and those dinosaurs look amazing. Oh, and it's Steven Spielberg.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna go see that.
Yeah,
but Jeff Goldblum, Sam Neill, and Bruce Dern's daughter. Like
Bruce Dern's daughter,
I drew
Laura Dern.
Laura Dern, thank you. I was drawing a blank on her name. You know, and Richard Attenborough. That doesn't seem like puts butts in seats, but you know those dinosaurs look so great, and Steven Spielberg.
That movie was sold on the dinosaurs.
Yeah,
it wasn't sold on the actors.
Exactly, they were the stars of the movie.
But I will say, if that movie was only the dinosaurs, I don't think it would be nearly as successful as it was. If you had no-name actors in it and people with questionable acting ability, I don't think it would be nearly as successful. I think it would be more akin to, say, sci-fi movies, like Sci-Fi Channel movies. And that's kind of the difference, is that not only could they back it up with the technology of showing dinosaurs, you know, in on film, but they could also back it up with the acting chops and the story.
Yeah. And
that's kind of what it comes back to. You know, those are spectacle movies that have a bit more than just spectacle.
Right. But I think if it had not been Sam Neill and say, like, you know, at the time, because he hadn't gone crazy in public, like Mel Gibson or somebody, you know, you know, or Richard Gere or somebody, whoever was big around that time, you know, then it might have put more butts in seats.
I don't know, because I think Sam Neill at this time was trying to do different things other than just English British actor guy, like
chasing Nicole Kidman around a boat.
Yeah. Like I think he was trying to do different things. And especially, as I said, like, I think In the Mouth of Madness, I forget when that came out. I think it was like 95. So he was already trying to experiment with horror.
Yeah.
And you know, really trying to do something different than just, you know, the big action movies and you know, like Jurassic Park and things like that. So I think he had the acting chops, and I think it was interesting to see him in a role that was completely different. And I think that's a lot of things that, you know, critics don't try to understand, is that actors don't like being pigeonholed into one type of role. They try to vary themselves, to do different things. So I think Sam Neill saw this as, okay, I've never done anything where I need to be, you know, one, in prosthetics, and two, be the true villain of the movie, you know?
And he always does have that edge to him. I mean,
he does.
I mentioned Chase Around Nicole Kidman. There's a movie where he tries to like rape her on a boat for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And like that scene in Jurassic Park where he's like cutting at that little boy's penis with the Velociraptor claw. I'm like, yeah, there he is.
He always had has a dark side to him.
Yeah.
But he's got the acting chops, in my opinion, to back it up. And it was, and honestly, Event Horizon, one of the positives you can say is it really stretches, in my opinion, you know, Sam Neill's ability to be the villain. and really sell it, because he really, really sells it. And you can tell that he's having fun while he's playing the villain. Like, he doesn't seem like he's phoning it in.
Yeah.
It
almost seemed like he was kind of phoning it in before he became the villain.
Exactly. Like, he was looking forward to that.
The
like,
scream he does earlier in the movie when he sees his, like, eyeless wife.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think,
Or it almost seemed like they were practicing for the scene
they
take they used. Oops. Damn it, you're fired, editor.
Yeah. So I think Sam Neill is probably one of the best parts of this movie.
Yeah.
Because they fleshed him out the most, and he's just legitimately having fun with it. I think he is. Do you have any other comments on this one?
I would say that I think everything is going to be unfairly compared to Alien.
Yes.
And people won't give it its just due because Alien ripoff, and then do the jerk off motion and leave because and it's so hard when you set the bar. And I know I said it on the show before, but true genius is when everything before it is irrelevant and everything after it is a copy of it. And if you're going to do a horror movie in space, it's always going to be compared to Alien.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of the time unjustly so.
And I think it's, as I said, it's hard to do something original. Like, I don't think people understand. Whenever you see someone say, "Oh, well, it needs to be original," do you know how hard it is to come up with something original?
Yeah.
I mean, the concept of originality is bullshit, in my opinion, because everybody's influenced by everything else around them.
Yeah.
So you're influenced by media and books and everything like that. So to say, "Oh, it's got to be completely original," and not have any sort of, hint from other media is bullshit. So that's why I don't have a problem with the fact that this does pull a lot from Clive Barker's work. I can tell that right off the bat.
Right.
And it does pull a lot from Hellraiser and Alien. I think that's fine. But it's very difficult to be something original. It's very difficult to be a horror movie in space, as you said, because you had the best one, which was Alien.
Well, and there was that movie with like Jake Gyllenhaal and Deadpool that came out in like 2016.
Yeah, Life.
Yeah, and I was like, that's just Alien.
No, that's Species.
Yeah,
that's Species. Which again, Species very similar to Alien, only it's not in space.
And horrible.
It's not that bad.
Oh, you're just thinking about boobies.
Yeah, I am.
But yeah, I would say, so to kind of wrap it up, really that awful? I'm going to be very confusing here.
Uh-oh.
It's not really that awful, but it's not really that good. I think this is just a movie.
Fair enough. I think that it is not really that awful. Okay. I think it is a fantastic example of a horror movie at the time that was trying to go against the horror movies of that time. So what do I mean by that? As I've said before, 97, you were looking at movies like Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer. These were very much formulaic, by the book slasher movies that had meta shit in them. You didn't really get the gothic horror. You didn't really get the, types of creatures and monsters and things like that. And just up in front gore of movies that you had in the 80s, for instance. And this is a movie that tried to go back to that, but add something to it. So I think it is a fantastic example of going against the grain in terms of what was popular at the time. It is not the best movie. I will clearly say that. But as I said, if you look at it from the terms of what was possible in 1997, doing a space movie without the idea of using the CGI that we're familiar with was difficult. So definitely see it. I will absolutely say. And if you are a fan of Hellraiser like I am, you will clearly pick up on every one of the aspects in this movie. And it is absolutely going to be the thing that replaces Hellraiser Bloodline in your brain of what the Hellraiser in space should be.
If you saw Hellraiser Bloodline.
If you saw Hellraiser Bloodline and you're like,
Yeah. And if you are playing the drinking game, Batman and Hellraiser.
Batman, Hellraiser,
other things that we mentioned 10,000 times in this episode.
So, John, where can they find you at on the Twitter machine?
The Unreal J Wolves.
Where can they find Lane?
I think, at Leopard Sex 69.
Leopard Sex 69.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, she doesn't want me sharing that one. Edit that out.
LA_Croft.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
I was
you.
like, holy shit.
Yeah. You're married to her and you don't even know her Twitter name.
I just put her name in the Twitter.
You can find me at Brian Kyton, and I also run the Psycho Show page. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, at Psycho Show. You can also find us on the Epicast Network at epicastnetwork.com. If you have a favorite movie or question you want to throw away, you want to talk to us about how you have such sites to show us, you can contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com. And make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Send us a rate, send us a review. We love getting those, and they definitely help us out. And we will see you next time.
Cowboy Cordis does not leave a man behind.
Epicast.